Hello, and welcome to another Lonely Mountain Snow Riders level editor tutorial video. In today's video, we are going to have a look into weather and lighting. So within our tools window, we are going to have to go to our fourth button from left to right, the time and weather button. And our first tool under that is the general weather and lighting. We can choose a time of the day preset, so for example we could choose the evening, and that will change our lighting. Alternatively, we can also use the slider to select a exact time of the day. This can go from midnight to, well, midnight again, it's a 24-hour clock. But that means we can also leave it at noon, that is, at 12. Our next slider is the north of the level. Along the time of the day, the north influences the direction of the shadows, which, as in the real world, will go in the opposite direction of the position of the sun. We can zoom into some trees to see how the north is influencing our shadow direction. We can see our shadows are right now pointing towards the slope. If I start moving the north, they will be moving clockwise. Of course, every time we moved the slider, the game had to update the lighting. That's why there were some dark moments while I was moving the slider. Next up, we have the weather values. We can also choose a preset here, and these presets already have values for all of the sliders that we see below. We could choose a sunny and windy, or a snowfall, for instance. Whichever field has a check mark next to it means that the effect is taking place and overwriting the default value. We can put them back to their default values if we use the reset button to the right. Or we can reset everything by going to presets and going to reset values. Our first weather settings is the strength and snowflake size of snowstorms. Moving a slider that's on its default value will automatically tick up the field that we're modifying. So for instance, we can pick a strength of 0.5. Now we have a bit of snowfall. However, because snowflake size is still on 0, we actually don't see any snowflakes. We have to pull them both at the same time. And if I put some bigger snowflakes, now we can see it's starting to snow. Next up we have cloud coverage. Let me remove the snowfall and explain cloud coverage now. Cloud coverage decides how much of your trail is going to be covered by cloud shadows. So we can put it around there. Next up, cloud speed will decide how fast these cloud shadows are going to move through the ground. Of course, having that on 0 will mean that our shadows will only be moving very slowly. Next up we have the wind options. Wind strength will define how strong our winds are, and that will be bending the trees. If we add some turbulence to the wind, our trees will also be shaking from that. The wind strength and turbulence also affect the snowfalls. So if I bring back my snowfall, we can see that the snowflakes are moving with the wind. If we put wind back to 0, we will see that snowflakes are just falling straight to the ground. Next up we have atmosphere. This is the atmospheric fog of the trail. It affects the whole level, and having some tiny amount of it can help with the depth filling for the backgrounds. Finally, our last set of settings are the color correction settings. They're only adjusting the colors of your level. So I am going to go through them real quick. We have temperature, that can get your level from very cold colors to very hot colors. There is tint, which slides between purple colors and more turquoise colors. Contrast will increase the contrast between darks and whites. Brightness will just increase the overall brightness. Saturation will increase the vividness of the colors. Shadow color will increase the intensity of shadows. However, for this effect you have to go to the negatives. And finally, highlight colors is going to increase the intensity of your whites. You can leave them as they are when you choose a preset, or trick them around to get the colors that look the best for you. Next up, we have the weather and lighting modifiers. That is the second tool of the time and weather tools. So far, whichever settings we modified from the weather and color correction affected the trail as a whole. Here, we can add effect volumes that will affect an individual part of the level. Let's click into add effect volume so you can more easily understand this. Once you do, a new effect volume will show up. You can move an effect volume around as you would move any other asset. You can increase the size of a volume by pulling the dots that are positioned on the faces of the cube. Each color set of dots will only increase the size in one certain axis. So I could pull it to the right as I did right now, pull it down with the green dot here, pull it up with the green dot on the other direction, or pull it to forward and backward directions with the blue ones. We can also decide the shape that our effect volume is going to have. We can choose from a box, which is the current one, a sphere, and a plane. The plane will actually just be covering the entire trail, and you can only modify it on the y-axis. This means that if you want to have all the terrain in a certain altitude having the same weather, you can use the plane shape to cover it completely and just modify how much of the height of the level will be affected by it. I would like to go back to my box. Under the shapes, you have the blend distance. Since whichever weather you set for the effect volume will only be in place while the player is riding within its limits, the blend distance will help to smooth out the effects once you leave its area. 10 is the default. Light effects can use smaller numbers for the blend. Stronger effects, as for example a strong snowfall, should be using larger blend distances so that the temporary weather fades out in a smooth way. For example, 25. If there are effect volumes overlapping, the priority settings will define which one will take priority over the other. You don't need to pay too much attention to it if you're not planning to overlap effect volumes. Finally, all of our weather and color correction settings work in the same way as they do for the general trail, weather and color correction. That is, except for one. For the effect volumes, we don't have an atmosphere slider. Instead, it's just fog. It works in a bit of a different way, and I made a cave in the background of the trail so I can show you an example for it. So I am going to move my weather effect to inside the cave, and I'm going to fit it into the cave. As I said, in the general trail weather settings, the atmosphere affects the atmospheric fog for the whole trail. In this case, fog only affects the area that is covered by the weather effect. This fog is actually much denser than that one of the atmospheric fog. And you can see it's also transitioning within my blend distance, so I'm going to decrease that so it can just stay within the cave mostly. And now we have a very foggy cave for whichever reason you would want to make up. If we play our trail a bit, we will see from the outside how our cave is visibly foggy. And now we can visibly see the smoke inside the cave. We can even go inside the cave, and we will feel that our surroundings are quite foggy now. Let's stop. As I said, the same can be applied to any of the weather effects or color correction. So for example, I could make my temperature inside the cave really cold, and for some reason have a very strong snowfall. Now, when I approach my cave, not only will it be moderately foggy, it will also have very strong snowfall that will transition in and a very cold color correction. Let's have a look into that now. And as you can see, all of a sudden, my screen just turned very blue and very snowy. If you would like some more examples of how color corrections and weather effect volumes can be used, you can go to the editor example level. And here you will find quite some effect volumes that are doing some different things and transitioning in some different ways. So in this case we have some snowfall here, and here we have also some light snowfall with strong winds and some color correction. You can explore this editor example level a bit more to familiarize yourself with the effect volumes, or just try it out in your own level and see what weather effects and color corrections you like the most. In the next video, we are going to be exploring resting and spectator spots. So I will see you in the next one.